Hello and welcome to Gapeys Grow Room. Every year I like to try something new to grow in the garden, and this year one of the things I'm going to be trying is sea kale. This is a Billington sea kale variety from the Experimental Farm Network, and sea kale isn't something that you see very often in seed catalogs. The Experimental Farm Network has some really unusual and unique varieties, so I thought I would give this a try. Now, sea kale is a little bit unlike your typical kale. It grows in a more bush-like pattern, and it gets only about 2 to 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide. The leaves are really a lot thicker than your typical kale as well. You can pretty much eat every part of the sea kale plant. Most people grow it for the young shoots or the roots and also the flowers. But the leaves themselves, once mature, are really thick and a little bit bitter. So I'm looking forward to trying all the different parts of this plant. It's supposed to be really, really high in vitamin C, so very, very good for you. People used to grow this back in the olden days for use against scurvy, because I guess the vitamin C in this really helps boost your immune system and helps cure the scurvy. Now, since this is so extremely cold hardy, this is grown in zones 4 through 8. We're in zone 8B, so it's a little bit high on the zone scale for this plant. It is a perennial. It's also supposed to be really drought tolerant, but I think you do need to water it fairly often the first year, but once established, it should be pretty drought tolerant. I found it interesting that this particular variety was developed in Montana, which is where I'm from, and the name of the breeder is Michael Billington, which is where the Billington sea kale gets its name. Now, it's recommended to start these either direct sown or indoors in a wide range from 6 to 12 weeks before our last frost date. It's about 12 weeks away from our last frost date right now, so I'm going to go ahead and get these started. Unfortunately, the Experimental Farm Network packets don't have any growing information on the back of their packets like some companies do, so I did have to do a little bit of research before starting these. And there are some tips and tricks on getting these started because they could be a little bit challenging. And actually they do say on the back of their packet that the germination rate is 10%, which is probably the lowest percentage that I've ever seen. So we need to do everything that we can to improve the germination rate on these. I did learn some tips and tricks on how to germinate these a little bit easier. And one of the videos I came across was edible acres. So we're gonna go ahead and give those tips a try. And if you're familiar with kale seeds, they're kind of small black seeds, but these ones are much, much different, not at all like any kale seeds that you've ever seen. Now the seeds have a really big outer coating on them that is really quite tough. You can't even break it with your fingers, but what we're gonna do is actually break this coating and get at the seed that's inside. And here is the seed that's inside, and we didn't smash it to smithereens. It's still intact. So we're just gonna go through and see if we can get as many of these out of this shell without smashing them to pieces. So we've got about a dozen seeds here, so I'm gonna go ahead and get these put into some potting mix. So I've got a 4-cell tray here that I've filled up with some potting soil or seed starting mix. This is actually Pro Mix with a little bit of extra perlite added to it, but you can use any seed starting mix that you want for starting seeds. Since these are poor germinators, I'm going to be adding 5 seeds to each of these cells, and I'm just going to poke 5 holes here in each cell. And we're going to plant them about a ½ an inch deep. So we'll just put 1 seed in each hole. And I did pre-moisten this soil so it is a little bit damp. It's not super wet. We are going to add a little bit more water after we get these seeds in. You want to make sure to wet the tops a little bit so that the seeds don't dry out. And I've got this water bottle here with a cap that I got on Amazon that puts out a really nice stream of water. I'll put a link to where I got this from in the description of this video if you're interested. Otherwise, you can just use a spray bottle and spray some water on the top. Now that our seeds are planted and we've got the top moistened, we need to cover this to hold in the humidity so it doesn't dry out. You can either cover it with saran wrap, that's probably the easiest and cheapest option, or if you have humidity domes, you can use that. I've got this nice little tray from Jiffy that holds a 4-cell tray just perfectly, and it came with a little humidity dome. So we're going to keep that in there until they germinate, which I have no idea how long it's going to take. We're going to find out. Looky what we have here. We've got a couple of seedlings that are starting to pop out in our sea kale tray. It's been about 2 weeks since we started these, so that is the time frame we're looking at for germination. We've got one coming out right there, and then it looks like we've got another one that is just starting to come out in this cell as well. Nothing going on in these 2 cells yet. Now that they're popping up, I've got them under some fluorescent lights. I like using these T8 fixtures for my seed trays, and here's a look at how close I usually keep them. They're about 2 inches or so from the top of the seedlings, and I've got this one here raised up so that we could see the seedlings a little better, but as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to be lowering that back down to about 2 inches above those seedlings. I'm back, and it's been 5 weeks since we started our sea kale, and I have to admit it's not going that great, and I was debating whether or not to even proceed with posting this video because things aren't looking so great. But that may explain why I can't find a whole lot of information out there on growing sea kale from seeds, because it's quite challenging, and I want to show the challenges that I've had growing it. So we started 25 seeds in this 4-cell tray, 5 in each one, and we had 1 come up in this cell, none came up in that cell. This one, we've got 2 over here, and then 2 more just popped up in the last few days actually. And then this cell only has 1, but pretty much all of the seedlings are not looking the greatest. There is this one here that really is the only one that looks really nice. And I'm going to be repotting these into individual cells. So like this one that's got 4 seedlings in it, we'll be transferring those so that they each are in their own cell. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and hopefully that will help them do a little bit better. Since we've got 6 seedlings here, I've got a 6-cell tray that we're going to be transferring those to, and I've got that filled with some pre-moistened ProMix HP potting soil. So I'm going to be separating these out and planting them into this tray. I'm just going to make a little hole for each of the seedlings. And let's take a look at this first cell here just to see if any of the seeds have started to germinate. I'm not seeing any signs of life, so none of those seeds even started to germinate. Let's go ahead and take this one out that's only got 1 seedling. So the roots aren't too bad. You can see there are some roots. They're very thin going throughout that cell. So I'm just going to break those up a little bit so we can get them planted into this tray. So I'm being really careful not to break those roots. I'm going to make this hole a little bit bigger. All right, so that is 1 down. And then we've got 1 more cell that doesn't have any other than 1. Yeah, this one has some really thin roots on this one as well. This last one's going to be a little trickier because we've got 4 seedlings in this one cell. Let's see how it looks. Oh yeah, the roots on this one are pretty dense, so getting these separated might be a little bit of a challenge. These 2 here on the end are newly germinated, so those probably will come apart fairly easily. And we are probably going to end up breaking some of those roots, unfortunately. Let's see. I'm just going to kind of pinch the soil to try and get those separated. Okay, so these last two are a lot bigger and have a lot more roots. So I'm going to go ahead, these yellowing leaves are the first leaves that came out, which are the cotyledon leaves. So they don't really need those leaves anymore, and they just came off really easily. Now let's see if we can get these separated. So I'm sure I did break a few roots off. Hopefully they'll recover. Okay, so these guys are in their own cells now. Hopefully they'll be able to grow a little bit better, and we'll give another update on these in another few weeks. It's been about a week since we got our 6 sea kales repotted up into the 6-cell tray, and they seem to be doing really good. So I'm going to start getting these guys ready to get transplanted. They're going to go downstairs and get some sunshine a couple hours a day, and then eventually they'll be able to stay outside full time. Let's go. We're back with an update on the sea kale, and as you can see, they don't really look that much different than the last update. And 4 months have passed since the last one. So they really have not grown much at all. I've been holding off doing an update because I was hoping I might see an improvement, but so far I'm not. I've checked the roots. They don't seem to be really root bound, so I haven't repotted them, but I think I'm going to go ahead and try repotting them. I've been keeping them watered. They've been getting a lot of sun. I've read that sea kale does prefer full sun, so they've been getting plenty. I've also been fertilizing every couple weeks or so, and nothing seems to be getting them to grow. So next step is repotting these up into some bigger containers and see if that gives us any improvement. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.